Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? You know, I'm a member of a group on Facebook. I say that a lot, don't I? I'm a member of this group on Facebook. I'm sure you are too. But I'm a member of several groups on Facebook dealing with role-playing games, and some of them are simply we talk techniques or theory or what have you, and some of them are about specific games. Like literally, this group has been created for this particular game. Sometimes it's a private game, sometimes it's just discussing the game, whatever the game might be. And some of the groups are, we have a group called Current Projects Group, because there's about 10 of us in that group, and most of us are involved in playing games with each other and kind of tossing around ideas. And the inevitable happens where a bunch of the members of the group get on a Facebook Messenger group chat, and we throw ideas back and forth throughout the day, or then go off on little tangents. And so we seem to never really stick to the topic. We go from this game and flit around, what are we going to do with this, and to the next one, and etc. And then we just, have some, Star Wars nerd talk, and then blah blah blah, back and forth. And sometimes my phone is pinging while I'm at work. It's pinging all day long, and I was like, I can't really go engage with this, but I'll go look at the end of the day or at lunchtime and try to catch up on what these guys have said. But brings up a good point. One of us said, hey, if we're all this engaged, if we're all this willing to kind of interact with each other throughout the day, at least once a day, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, why don't we play in like a play-by-post, play-by-email, some kind of game like that? Because why don't we put this energy to actually playing a game together rather than simply just BSing all day long, which I thought was great. Now, my take on play-by-post games is highly informed by my first experience with play-by-post, which was awesome. I was lucky enough to get into a really good game. This guy, Jamabarn, ran it on Dragon's Foot. I think he's still running that campaign, as a matter of fact. I'm still friends with some of the people I played with to this day, because I had the privilege of playing with some really great players. So I know play-by-post can be awful and boring and slow, and people can be unengaged. But also on the flip side, you can have some wonderful experiences. And I think probably the most important thing is, which is not the topic of this video, is to have people that are willing to be very engaged, to post every day, to at least check up every day, to let people know I'm going to be AFK, away from computer, for these days, so don't go looking for me. Maybe we should grind the game to a halt for a second. If you have that, they work really, really well. And so it's obvious already we have a group of people that are capable of doing things like that. We just need to go do something now. Biggest hurdle has been overcome, in my opinion. And so we're talking about what kind of platform do we put this on? Do we put this on something like Discord? I have no idea what the Discord chat's really like. I've used it a couple times. I have a preference for forums, because that's what I experienced, and because you can divide them up into all kinds of neat little things, and it's very, very searchable, which this video is not about. It's about font colors. I'm going to get to font colors. I have very little experience with play-by-email. I think actually none. So I can't really speak to that either. But I want to talk about something that I wish I made up. But Jamabarn used this. I smiled when I heard Murder Bunny talking about this in another private Facebook group, a techniques group, a little while ago. Using font colors, I think, it's been my experience, I don't just think, that in play-by-post, you can really communicate a lot of information in a way that you cannot necessarily communicate on a tabletop level. I certainly prefer tabletop, but let me explain. What the technique I've seen used, and that I have used to really good effect, is using different font colors, or I suppose if you don't want to use font colors, you can use italics and bold and underline or whatever to do the same sort of thing, to convey different pieces of information. And what I mean is this: as a game master, as a player, a lot of your posts will be in just a regular old black standard type font. So say my character does this. Philippe walks over here. Philippe smiles Riley. Philippe opens the door. Philippe tries to stab the Cardinal's guard, whatever happens to be, right? And the game master, on the other hand, can describe what's going on, what the NPCs do, etc. When you actually say something, it's dialogue. You type it in green. That's just the color we used. Okay, you type it in green. The game master types it in green. So you don't necessarily even need to put quotes around it. But that instantly, as you're going and reading somebody else's post, you find, okay, this is what the person actually said. That's really kind of neat. Then, use red for out of character. So at the very same time, you can like have a paragraph break, and then you might say OOC, but the red really kind of informs you right away. This is something that's not in character. It's not being said in character. The GM is maybe telling you something or reminding you of something, whatever it happens to be. So it's kind of like this subtext going on at the same time, and you can communicate more information to each other in that fashion, where it doesn't jar you. And here's the thing: it doesn't jar you out of that black typeface. What's really going on? What the actual game conversation is. And then, last but not least, we used blue for dice rolls or for mechanics discussions. You can roll dice and say, okay, I roll my saving throw, or whatever it happens to be. I roll my attempt to, fix this tractor, whatever it happens to be. And, oh, okay, I rolled, 8 dice, I got 3 successes. Damn, not even the average. And also, not only that, but it gives the game master, or the player, the ability to then go into a description of what this mechanic, what's actually happening with the mechanic, and then you put all that in blue typeface. Or the player says, well, here's how I'm assembling my die pull, or here's the here's what I'm doing to get a modifier for this. And it's completely separated from that red out of character. Let's trade information, some kind of procedural, not procedural information in red, but just more like, here's my intent, here's, whatever's going on. You remember that thing back there that we were supposed to remember? All that sort of stuff. So you have that mechanical information going on. So you can have 4 different conversations, well, really 3, going on at the same time. You've got the actual game conversation, any dialogue's in green, so it pops out at you. You have the red out of character stuff where you're having, it's kind of like the passing notes back and forth as you're playing. Remember this, Fred, whatever happens to be. And then you have all that mechanical procedural stuff going on in blue. Gives you a tremendous amount of information, but it's not cluttered. It doesn't step all over each other. And it allows you to have a very large amount of communication. I found that to be incredibly helpful and incredibly useful. So that's one of my biggest, I don't want to say tips, but one of the coolest things. I'm glad I was exposed to it in the beginning. It's one of the coolest things you can do in a play-by-post game to really communicate a ton of information and make the experience as smooth and as enjoyable as possible. So I don't know if you had experience with that, but if you have, or if you've done something different or similar, let me know.